Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for today's episode. We are talking with the founder and president of Vision Board Media, and she helps people brand themselves, their company, and their employees on LinkedIn and beyond. Very excited to be rocking out with Donna Serdula. Donna, ready to rock?
Tim. I'm ready to rock. Are you ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock. So let's start off with a good note. Tell me a story of success in your business or your life that we can be inspired by.
A story of success. Oh my goodness. Back in 2009, I'd been laid off from my job and I was feeling a little bit like, oh gosh, what now? But I decided to start my business. I'd always wanted to have my own business, to be honest with you. And I loved LinkedIn. I truly saw so much potential and I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people really embrace it. And off I started. And 10 years later, here I am. Got 20 writers that work with me. We've worked with over 6,000 executives and professionals from all over the world. And that little tiny silly thought I had back in 2009 really bloomed, and it's provided me with a good life, and it's really allowed me to help a lot of people change their lives.
Wow. Why LinkedIn?
I know it's not the sexiest of social networks, is it?
Well, it's becoming very useful now because, man, every other social media network is turning into a dumpster fire, but LinkedIn is still pretty good.
It is. It's not as toxic as some of the other places out there. It's sort of escaped the whole politics and all of that divisiveness. But for me, I had been in sales and marketing, and I was doing a lot of networking. In my past, I had worked and developed a CRM program for, an old company that I'd worked with. So, I came to LinkedIn looking at it and seeing this huge potential, to forge a network, a place to really brand yourself, a place to really understand, other people, because it gave you this portal into their network, their connections, their past. I just remember, immediately feeling like this is one heck of a tool. This is just something that could be huge. And I was right.
Sure were. You were definitely a visionary, because I was using that tool way back then too, and I did not see what you saw. So good job on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's always nice when you grab the right tiger by the tail, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I grabbed Facebook for the most part, which was good. I got a lot of my business built on that. But now, like I say, I'm starting to move to LinkedIn just because of, obviously, maybe it was the people, maybe it was the way that the network was built, but for some reason, LinkedIn seems to have escaped, like you say, the craziness of what's going on.
Yeah, it's really a pleasant place to go. And I think since the pandemic, it's become almost a little bit more personable. At one time it was very, very career oriented. You didn't really talk about anything even remotely, personal, but they're beginning to talk about their successes. They're being a little bit more vulnerable. It's a little bit of a different conversation than what used to take place. And I think that's what's drawing people in. And I think the fact that so many people have been working from home, they really craved that water cooler, network, those connections. And that also really helped in solidifying LinkedIn as the player that it is right now.
Agree. So now, on the route towards success, every once in a while, you're going to hit some bad notes. It's just not going to go completely as planned. So I'm wondering, is there anything that didn't go quite as planned for you? Any bad notes that you could share with us, and maybe how we can avoid or recover from them if it happens to us?
Oh my goodness gracious, bad notes, issues. And you know what? I think for me, when, I started the business, it was just me. And I hit that, that E-myth area where you're doing everything and you burn out and you can't grow because, you're just so busy getting business and then providing the service. That was, I think a lot of businesses hit that sort of inflection point where you have to say, all right, where do I want to take this? And what do I want to do? For me, I started to bring on writers and I started to phase myself out of the writing. And that I think was, I can't say that it was like a big negative, but it was certainly that bump where it was like, wait, where do I want to go? And then I started to bring on writers, and that in itself, it's hard to find the right people, people who really match your concept of what quality is and what depth and, what quality means. And it's something that, we really work really hard on finding the right people and making the right matches, because, my team is really crafting a reputation. They're crafting a brand. They're telling a person's story. And it's an intimate, vulnerable place to be. And, we've got to have the right high level people doing it.
And so how'd you do it?
One of the ways I did it was, I partnered with, with another human being. She's my general manager at Vision Board Media, but she has made a big, you can't always do everything alone. And that was a big thing. It was, okay, I brought her on as a writer initially, and then she wanted to step up, and then together we've been able to really, find the right people, and run the business. She handles a lot of the orders and, managing and bringing on writers. I'm more, focused on, like just getting the word out and being the thought leader and, the sales and the marketing piece. So, to me, I think it's finding someone that you can trust and allowing them to do what they do best. But at the same time, it's, always looking to the future and really making sure that, the people that you have representing your brand are people that you want to represent your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep hearing that quite often, is that, oftentimes you can teach the skill, but it's the person that matters most, the personality, I guess. Right. And the fit and right. That kind of thing.
Yeah. And Tim, the one thing that I say, Donna and I talk a lot about, is you've got to trust your gut. And so many times, our guts will say, like, walk away or don't take, it could be hiring someone, it could be bringing on a client, it could be a whole bunch of different things. But a lot of times you have to learn to trust your gut, because, and especially the longer you're in business, the more finely tuned your gut becomes. But a lot of times we don't want to, like we just, you're almost scared. You want to, I think it'll work, but no, you have to trust your gut.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think we've been sort of conditioned, and we're seeing a lot of this right now, trust the science. There's got to be proof. I don't know. My gut knows a lot here. And I can't explain it. So yeah, there's definitely something there.
Yeah. And it's sometimes it's scary, and sometimes you might be losing something, but at the same time, who was it? Was it Maya Angelou who said, when a person shows you who you are, believe them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is. Who they are, believe them, I think is what she said. But yeah. I mean, I think, and that's the thing about the gut. And I mean, most entrepreneurs experience this, that sometimes your gut will take you in a place where it isn't very comfortable at first. But then when you look at it in hindsight, you're like, okay, so that was the path I needed to take to get to where I am right now. Yeah. Okay, I understand why it had to go bad first before it ended up being good.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, to me, I've always believed that, it's on the other side of awkwardness and discomfort. That's where the growth comes in. You have to like, maybe not physically, but you have to move outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And I think comfort zone is boring for the most part. I mean, you really get excited when you solve a problem, don't you? Like,
Mhm.
rather than, oh, just, I went and I did something mindless all day. Like, you don't come home from, a day of that and you feel energized, do you? You just want to sit in front of the TV at that point. But
It's
when you solve a
true.
big problem, like, that's when you come home and you tell your spouse all about it, right?
Yeah, it is true. It is so true. And that's where excitement comes from, right? That's when you're having that adventure, and that's when it's memorable, and that's when you that's my son.
Working from home.
I'm working from home. My son's outside the door, and apparently the sandwich and the TV show I put on is holding him.
Oh, well, that's what this is all about, right? My son was 1 year old when I started working from home. And it was, it's tough to teach a 1 year old when they should and should not cry.
Yeah, you can't. You
Nope.
absolutely can't. You can't. But I think, like, there's been a whole bunch of things that I think that have come out of the pandemic, and a lot of positive things. It's not like it's all negative, but I think one of something that I enjoy is that there's a humanness, and I think more and more people are willing to understand that you have this life. And yes, there might be a baby crying. And yes, you might not be looking your best. It doesn't mean that you're a bad professional. It doesn't mean that, you're a bad person. It just means that you've got a life. And I think more people are open and willing to accept it, because I remember back in the day, that was not always the situation. Like, God forbid you heard a dog bark,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember, and it was one of my first podcast episodes. I remember talking specifically about this, and that, when you are working from home, these things are going to happen. You're going to be on a Zoom call, and, something's going to happen when your family, your dog's going to start barking or whatever it is. And you think that, oh, I'm going to be mortified by all this thing, but you end up having a great conversation about it with the person on the other line.
Yeah. And sometimes you're able to connect at a higher level, a different level, a more personable level.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where, instead of trying to control everything around you and get stressed out when it doesn't work out, just lean into it. It's all going to be good.
Yeah. And I think for me, we were talking about, trusting your gut. I also try to take like a real Zen like approach to business. There are times when, it is what it is. Like, if it was meant to be, it would be there.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, yeah, maybe my kid's going to come to the door and knock,
So
it's all good.
So you mentioned earlier that you got yourself a writer, so you had that taken care of, and then all of a sudden you had to go out there and find the fans. So I'm wondering, how did you do that?
How did I find the fans? I started in 2009, and, I was finding fans well before I had the writer, because I wrote from 2009 to 2012. Then I brought on my first 2 writers, and I continued to write for another year. And then in 2013, that was when it was, all right, we're going to bring on a full stable at that point. But when I first started in 2009, I had a business coach. I had gone to hear this business coach speak, and he had talked about how when a person starts a business, they typically, they hang out that shingle, and they start to sell, like they start like, hey, buddy, you want my services? And that doesn't always work. I mean, it rarely works.
Yeah.
So then they start to market, and then they're like, all right, let me send out these postcards. And that doesn't work. And then the final thing they try is, all right, let me start educating people on my services. And he had said, flip it around, start with the education. And for me in 2009, LinkedIn was still very new. LinkedIn was still not something that a lot of people had heard about. And very few people were thinking like me, which was, hey, this is not your online resume. This is not just a job search site. This is really the key to your online reputation, your brand, who you are, why people want to work with you. It's your digital introduction. It's your first impression. This is huge. And people are checking you out, right? Because people want to know who they're going to be working with, who they're going to be meeting. And so for me, I saw it as this, huge thing, but very few people did. So I had to, in order for me to even get clients, I had to educate people on what is LinkedIn and why should you use it and why should you care and why does it matter and how can you leverage it. And so that's what I did. I mean, I spoke to whoever would have me. I wrote as many blogs, articles as I could. My thought was, I'm going to give everything away for free, except for the actual writing of the profile. And that's the rest is history.
I don't even think I can add anything to that. That's great. Because that's exactly what it is. I mean, you start off by overselling and just trying to talk to anybody that'll talk to you, and it doesn't necessarily work, especially considering the people in your immediate circle probably don't even need your service anyway. You need to start getting outside of that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering though, was there a specific, I'd like to know, so when you first start your business, you're kind of wearing all the hats and you're doing everything. And it's sort of, your kind of business is going like this a bit, right? Because you're selling and then you're fulfilling and all that stuff. But when you brought somebody on board and now you've delegated some stuff, so now you're free. How did you go from this to okay, well now I have to go out there and up my, what did you do? How did you change the way you worked?
I was never free. I think that's what makes an entrepreneur. And I hate to even call myself an entrepreneur. It's that's what makes a business owner. It's someone who is, they're always gunning and always hustling and always looking to see, where can you go and what can you do? So, when certain things opened up, I immediately filled them with more speaking engagements, more writing, more podcasts, whatever it was. And it was also, giving me the time to spend talking to clients or prospects and, and so for me, I wish there was this easy answer. There just isn't. And even now I look to the future and I think, there's still so much more I want to do, and it's all about delegation. And it's hard. It's hard to do, but you just keep moving forward.
That's a really good answer. You looked for more opportunities to get in front of more people, which is exactly what I think you should be doing. And I think that's kind of I think that a lot of the blocks sometimes that I've heard and even that I've experienced is that you sort of looking over your shoulder and going is that going the way I want it to go? Am I okay to go over here right now? Whereas you just kind of went, no, that's fine. I'm over here. Let's go get this done.
Yeah. And it's in some ways, it's really about keeping, that focus on, always making sure that, and at the same time, I'm always checking quality, I'm checking with our writers, I'm checking with our clients. Are you happy? Are you loving it? Because that's a huge aspect of it. To me, as much as I'm always looking forward, I'm also making sure that we have a referral engine going on, because I want these people to love the process, that they love what has occurred, that they will always come back to us and they will tell their loved ones and their friends and their colleagues, you won't believe the reason why I'm here in my career today is because of Donna and her team and what they did for me yesterday. And, so that's the other aspect. It's, yes, you have to move forward and get in front of as many people, but at the same time, you have to make sure that there's no holes and it's not a sieve, right?
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. So now I talk about practice makes perfect because, you know, when we are running a business, we have to make sure we keep up with the times, I guess, and keep,
Yeah.
you know, getting better at what we do. And I'm wondering, like, how do you approach that?
You know, to me, I had said to you, like, I have a little story for you about practice makes perfect. But you know, I grew up believing that people had in like ingrained, inborn like talent. Like that person who plays the piano, they play the piano so well because they have an ear. And I never was able to play the piano so well because I just, you know, I don't have that ear. I mean, I truly, like, my parents imparted that to me. And it was years later. And, you know, a friend who was a musician had said to me, you know, he was playing the guitar, and I'm like, oh, I wish, you know, I really wish I could play the guitar. And he went out and got me a guitar, and he got me DVDs and like I'm like, what is this? He's like, well, you know, you can learn, you can practice. I'm like, no, I just want to play. Like, I don't want to develop myself. I just want to magically learn to play. Plus, I don't have the ear. And that was when he had said, no one has the ear. You know, you might have like long, strong fingers that make, you know, playing a little easier, but you get good only through practice. And that was such a explosion, like a mind like explosion for me, because I always thought for so long I was never very good at anything because I just didn't have that ability. As soon as I realized that, you know, I then started to look at my life and I said, what am I good at? And it was technology and computers, and it was, you know, writing. And these were the things that I loved to do. And I did them a lot. And I was actually building them up and honing them, not because I was practicing, even though I was, but because I just enjoyed doing it. And that was a big shift. That was a big shift. So, you know, now how do you do it? You listen to podcasts, you read books, and you try to get yourself out there, and you try to network. You know, you do all of those things and you try to remain relevant. I mean, I remember, Tim, this is such a silly story, but do you remember back when monitors were like really deep and they had the thick frame around them?
Oh yeah, that was my first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like right when they were shifting to being the flat screen with a very thin frame,
Yeah.
I was at a networking event, and this old guy hobbles over to me and he's like, I've got the best, you know, marketing thing for you, young lady, you know, young whippersnapper. And he pulls out this like thick sticker. And he's like, we'll just print the name of your company and your name, your phone numbers, and you just hand it out to your clients and prospects, and they'll stick it on the side of their monitor.
Okay.
I'm like, with what real estate? Like, monitors are flat. There's no room. And the guy was like looking at me like I was insane. Like he was selling something that was antiquated and defunct. And that to me was like, I hope I never get to that point where I'm pushing something that no longer is relevant or exists. But you can't just assume that it's going to always be the way it is.
Well, and especially with technology moving as quickly as it does, and it keeps getting faster. I mean, we probably will be in that place where by the time we develop the idea, the technology has changed, right?
Yeah. And you know, for me, I'm always looking, you know, LinkedIn has been something I've hung my hat on, but you know, to me, it's just the medium that we use. You know, we're really about helping people understand who they are, what they do, and how to articulate that message and that story in a manner that gets people excited, that gets a person feeling like they have confidence, they know who they are, they resonate with them. Like, to me, that is really what we do. It's telling that story. It's, providing, those pieces in the development, because it's so hard. It's so hard to write about yourself. It's just, whether LinkedIn will one day disappear, and maybe it will, I would hate that to happen, but, I still feel that what we provide, the LinkedIn is the medium. There's always going to be value. There's going to be a need to be able to articulate your story.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the tool that you're using happens to be LinkedIn right now, but the service that you're providing is definitely transferable to, any other platform. I mean, technically, you could probably use those same concepts and use them on any social media platform right now.
Yeah.
It's just that it happens to be that LinkedIn is probably honed in to exactly what you're trying to get across, right?
They have the right audience, and they have the most robust profile. Like you look at the Twitter bio, you look at the Facebook one, there's really not the fields or the areas to really expound like there is on LinkedIn. But, at the same time, we've moved into, doing more with resumes and with blogs. So there's no dearth of areas to create this content.
So what about any other tools, or is there anything you can add to, the instrument of choice that you're using?
I mean, our instrument of choice is definitely LinkedIn. But I will say there's been a few. There's my son again, working from home. Oh my gosh. Shh, go watch PJ Mask. But I'm loving otter.ai. Have you used otter.ai or heard of it?
Write it down though.
So I use it for my podcast. I use it for when I interview clients. I use it for a host of things, but basically it records. And rather than going to some third world country and paying, a human being, like minimum wage to sit there and mindlessly transcribe the audio, Otter just does it automatically.
Okay.
And you get this actual transcription, almost real time. But what's nice is you can click on the word and you can play the audio at the same time. So if there's something that's not transcribed 100% accurately, like you can kind of go in and see and listen. But I find it just to be so helpful, to like not to have to wait 2 weeks to get a transcription, to be able to get it immediately, to be able to listen and read and see it. It's just an awesome, awesome thing.
Nice. There's another one called The Script that I just recently was introduced to, and it does exactly the same thing. Only I think that's when you like upload your audio into it, and then it just like transcribes everything, and you can like see it and follow along with it. Really
there's
cool.
Another one called, I think, Fireflies. There's a whole bunch. I happen to like Otter. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the name, but it works really. It's a great tool. It's a really great tool.
Oh yeah, and if you're doing like onboard interviews or anything like that, especially in your job, all this stuff could be useful for sure.
Oh yeah, I went to my son's school just on Monday, and I sat down. I'm like, I'm recording and transcribing this interview.
Nice. All right, well, let's get to your guest solo before your son knocks your door down here. So tell me, what's exciting in your business right now?
What's exciting? I think what I've really have enjoyed, and I feel like, I don't know what has ushered it in, but more and more companies are recognizing that it's not just, telling their employees, you got to look good on LinkedIn, or for that matter, most have just ignored it totally. But so many there's been such a flux in the workforce that they're trying to recruit. And as they're recruiting, they're realizing that all of these candidates are looking at the company, not just on the website, but on LinkedIn. And these rock star talent, candidates, they're actually going in deeper than just the company page. They're clicking on people, and they're looking at the employees, and they're looking at who they'd be working with, and they're making some judgments. And suddenly, that's usually when HR or marketing or the CEO at that point calls me up and they're like, okay, we need to make sure that the the external facing people or these departments that we're really struggling to recruit for, we need to make sure that these people look amazing on LinkedIn. Because if we want to attract rock star talent, we got to showcase that we do have rock star talent. And so that's been really exciting for me, is that we've been doing more and more corporate projects where we're working with, big companies to really tell the story of their employees on LinkedIn.
That's really cool. And it's exactly right too. Because the people that are really serious about what they're getting into will do that research and they will find them.
Oh yeah. And this is your chance. Like, this is your opportunity to really share this message of culture, of fit, of mission. It's so important. And they come to us because we're not copying and pasting a resume. We're not copying and pasting like this dull, dry boilerplate copy, but we're really talking, to the employees, and, we understand the brand story of the company. We're then, marrying it and weaving it with the employee's story. And we're coming out with these really cohesive, unified presence on LinkedIn.
Wow. How do we find out more about this?
LinkedIn-makeover.com, whether you want it for yourself or for your company.
Awesome. So we can go to the website to find it. And of course we can go on LinkedIn and find you.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I'm not there. It's it's a ghost town now. Yeah. So yeah, you can always visit me on LinkedIn, but my website is linkedin-makeover.com. And so there you have it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Donna. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for having my son. That was a lot of fun too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was probably more stressful for you than me, but it was definitely great. Right on. Thank you so much again for rocking out. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast.